There, right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Obviously, apologise for a short little technical difficulty, but hey, these things happen, and we've got past them. We're moving on now. So right now, it's all about the ways of keeping and growing great talent. So ways of keeping and growing great talent. Again, I'm sure as I say that, you have your own ideas on how to do that. Maybe you've certainly been doing that for years. Maybe on the other side of the coin, you've just started out and you're learning from others, certainly learning from those here at HR Week on how they do it best. We're going to look into that right now with a gentleman, the Vice President and Software Engineering at Technotronics, Mr. Rovin Pulikken. And I think there he is. Hello. Hi. Can you hear me? No? Okay. We can see you. Can you hear me? No. You're looking great, by the way. I don't know where you are. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear, fantastic. We can see you, we can hear you. We did have somebody else who unfortunately can't be with us right now to converse with you, to ask questions and to take this conversation forward. So somebody else has jumped in instead of Anna, in fact. So I'll introduce now Milica Kostic. Milica, are you there?
Hi, I'm here, of course.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Peter.
Milica comes in to save the day. Where you,
as always.
So what's going to happen now? I'll let you two have this conversation forward, and then again towards the end, if there are any questions from our listeners, burning questions, I'll jump in and ask those for you, Rovin. Okay, so take it away.
Wonderful. Rovin, it is a pleasure to meet you. I've heard so many wonderful things about you. You lead a group of incredible people who are crucial for the whole company. How does that feel?
Thank you. I mean, great to meet you too, and I'm definitely honored to be part of this conference and having got the opportunity to talk here. Yes, I do lead a bunch of incredible engineers. I mean, they're great engineers, and leading a team simply feels great. I mean, at the end of the day, you feel satisfied, encouraged. I mean, all rolled into one. So, if you ask me in one word, it's simply great feeling. I'm surrounded by great people, and we attempt to change the world every day in terms of what we do, and we are reasonably successful.
Mm-hmm. Of course, and we know that that there is a constant war for talent around the globe, and it seems that the engineers in India are especially sought after now. My very close friend, especially, and India and Indian IT talents it is a hotspot. And how do you keep your talent engaged and motivated to stay with you?
Yeah, as I just mentioned earlier, for me, the key is people. And you can't do anything without people in spite of everything else that you have. There is always war for talent, whether it's India or any other place. I mean, good talent, you always end up finding it difficult to get. And if you find good talent, I mean, like us, everybody wants to hire. So it's all for us it's about converting the challenges to opportunities. And for retention, like it's extremely important to understand why people stay with us. So I basically broadly categorize this into two parts. One is the emotional aspect, and the other one is the logical aspect. I'm an engineer by training, so for me, it is easier to lean on the logical aspects while forgetting the emotional aspect. And that's something which I've learned during my career. So when you consider the emotional aspect, building and keeping trust is one of the cardinal truths and the most important thing as to why people stay back. And if you look at it, why people stay back is they stay for their leader, they stay for the immediate manager of theirs. And it's very important that we grow this bunch of managers. So the first line of defense is these managers for us, and that is where the connect happens with the company, with the organization, and in all aspects. So we pay a lot of attention in ensuring that we hire and coach leaders and the key influencers. The second part is, I mean, understanding the pulse of the organizations. There are various means by which we get pulse of the organizations. I, for example, conduct a lot of skip level one-on-ones, have various skip level meetings with teams, and you can never be busy. I mean, whatever busy you are, you can never be busy for your people. So being approachable is very important. That feeling becomes really important, and it's not only with your managers, but it's also with all the key influencers. The third aspect around emotional, or what I would like to call out, is transparency in communication and engagement. It's very important. You cannot build trust without being transparent. If you look at it, 95% of the information can be shared. It's not confidential, and we sometimes tend to hoard information as leaders, and that's totally incorrect from my perspective. So it's important that we communicate and create an environment where people can give us feedback. On the logical aspects, yes, it's very important that we create hope, which means we have to simplify the company strategy in a way that everyone understands, give them an understanding of the market, give them an understanding of the environment in which we work in, the customers. Um, Growth and development is an important aspect. They need to grow. And they need to grow as people, they need to grow as leaders, they also need to grow technically. If you take an engineering community, or if you take any other community, they need to have a sense of fulfillment. So for me, these are the few key aspects. There are obviously many more aspects, but these are some of the most important things that I look for.
Okay, wonderful. And you mentioned the importance of the open communication and providing feedback. In which ways do you do it? How do you provide feedback, and how do you tackle some problems which are not very easy to handle and not easy to talk about?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, building trust is very important. When you have trust, they give you back trust. So trust is mutual, right? And feedback is also mutual. It's a communication. When you have open communication mechanisms, this the trust and the communication happens openly. So for us, it's extremely important that we end up having an environment where we create an environment where there is a lot of trust, and this is where we end up giving very open feedback, and the feedback is all about giving it very directly. Also, there's no point trying to kind of sugarcoat it. And the other important aspect of feedback is to give it quickly. If you hold on to feedback, give it at a later point of time, the feedback actually becomes quite ineffective. So it's important that we build the trust, in which case we create an environment where there is no fear and it is conducive to give feedback. We give it, we give it directly, and we give it as quickly as possible. And we doing the feedback, we don't end up talking about corrective actions, because it's just about giving feedback. Give time and space to the person whom you're giving feedback to. Let them take some time to digest, and like, you can listen to their feedback also. So feedback is always mutual. When we have this element of trust, you can give feedback fairly directly, and people will hugely respect you for that. On the other hand, if you delay feedback, if you give it in a manner the recipient is not understanding, that results in a lot of confusion and communication gaps, which can then result in attrition, business impact, and so on.
Of course, and what you just mentioned about sugarcoating, it is important for you to be straightforward with the feedback, and because sometimes people would not understand it the way you
Yeah.
intended it to be. Great. And I know from talking to Anna previously, who unfortunately could not be here with us, that you have great interaction and that you grow talents immensely. And no matter whether it is the business, professional, or personal growth that we are talking about, and this is something that is important to you. And can you tell us a little bit more about how you grow the great talent, great teams, in fact, and what have you learned over the years?
Yeah. So you inherit great talent. That's something which I believe, and you have to then your job is then to grow them. There's actually no magic formula, correct? I mean, for any of these particular aspects, I'll just share some of my learnings. The first step which I've learned is treat each person as unique and different. I stay away from trying to bucketize people, because everyone is important, everyone is different, and everyone is as different as the DNA that you have in your body. I mean, which is running in your blood, right? So once you start respecting a person as an individual and not as a resource, or not as a bucket of categorization, very broad categorization, you start connecting with the person. And once you start connecting with the person, then your role translates into a coach and a mentor. You go through a few steps. You have to understand what your core skills are, and take them to the process of what I call a self discovery, where they begin to understand. And once you understand where their strengths are, and once they understand where their strengths are, you work along with them on creating the development plans, on creating, like, the process around it, on giving them opportunities, identifying opportunities for them. And a lot of the opportunities can be part of the work. If it's not part of the work, identify trainings, identify any other forms. It could be customer interactions, it could be working in a different team, and um, uh, any of these could happen. And one other important aspect of growth is we need to allow them to expand their horizontal breadth. Vertical depth is very important, but people grow when they also grow their horizontal breadth. What I mean by that is expose them to activities which may not be part of the core skills or the core competencies which they are currently working on. Example could be someone in engineering getting exposed to marketing, someone getting exposed to sales functions. And these are really important. And when you look at that particular factor, you see people start thinking widely, they can connect to why they're doing what they're doing, and then they come up with solutions. I always say there are different categories of people, and you can work easily with people who know what their problems are, who are willing to change, and who come up with solutions. You have few people who don't care. You have another bunch of people who identify problems. You have a third bunch who identify problems and then give you solutions. But then you have the fourth bunch, which is really what we're looking at, who identify problems, give you solutions, and are willing to take ownership and go that extra mile. That is the easiest part of it to grow. But then one other important thing is, like, we need to delegate. Please don't try to keep everything yourself. Unless you delegate, people don't grow, you don't grow. So delegation is an important aspect, and to delegate, you need to trust people. I always tell my team, like, you guys, all of us grew because someone trusted us. Let's trust the people who are. And don't talk about, like, oh, you need to actually have 10 years of experience, or you should have gone through this process, only then I will give you this. Trust, allow them to fail, they will pick up, learn on their own, build an environment. Our job is to build the bridge and enable them to walk through it.
Wonderful. And right now, you mentioned that you should give people all ownership and you should trust them. And in order for them to grow, they should have tasks delegated to them. And how do you know that you can trust someone in the first place, especially if someone is new? Is there any special formula or special secret which tells you, yes, this person will handle the task until the end, until completion? I can fully trust this person.
Yeah. So there's one thing which I learned, or which I heard many years back from someone who taught me how to coach, is that when you meet someone, there is already an implicit trust. You can break the trust, or you can build on the trust. With respect to trust, that's what it is. But I understand your question is, how do you identify the core skill sets, and how do you give that set of activities to the person? The person before you hire would have gone through an interview process, so you have a fair idea. And of course, your interview process needs to be really good, and you should be able to discern talent, and having the right people interviewing is extremely important. um, then you start building up. Once the person is onboarded, you start building up a relationship. Now, if the person has already been in the company, you of course have the privilege of having known the individual, or someone else would have known the individual. All that comes as the basic information. But then you need to have a sense of your own. So I would say, again, as I just told earlier, depending on the skill sets of the individual, please have discussions with them, get an understanding of what they think they know, then you form an understanding. Give them activities outside the scope of their comfort zone, and let's see how they react. It could be small activities. Let's not push them too hard. But there's one thing I tell my managers, is that please trust your people, and don't judge them by your yardstick. What I mean by that is, allow them to stretch. The only thing that you need to give them is a comfort that even if you fail, it's okay. You learn from the failure, you allow them to grow along. Build the support system around them, so that, like, they're not left in the lurch. There is somebody whom they can lean on to. So these are very, very important. There is obviously factors like, like a company with the legacy that we have. We have got people who have stayed with us from zero to stayed with us even up to 40 years. Like, so there will be a difference in terms of being able to understand, and that is where we all come in. So we should have, whenever we try to grow people, not having bias is extremely important. If we go with our biases, we end up breaking trust.
Yes, of course. And I believe that when people feel that they're not trusted enough, they do not have this desire to actually prove you that they can trust, that you can trust them, and that they are capable enough of handling the task. Sometimes this is what happens in organizations and with people, and you should trust them and you should show them that you do. And there
Yes.
was a question which from the audience about trust as well, and it's perfect timing. And it says that trust is a new currency, and we heard that today. But we hear also that collaboration is important. And how do you motivate people to collaborate more?
Yeah. So trust obviously is, I would say, the base currency on which you build things. Collaboration is extremely important. Without trust, you have no collaboration. You can only collaborate with people whom you trust. With others, you can definitely collaborate, but the impact of that would be limited in terms of you wouldn't have. Now, how do you motivate people? How do I do it? Right. So once there is, we many times, if it's like totally new set of people, we do have activities whereby which we get people to understand more and put them in environments where they start talking to them and where they start working with them, and that's how they build trust. There could be sometimes where, like, you have experienced people who come and they already have a background where trust comes into picture. But there are a lot of these kind of, I would say, ice breaking events or breaking things that we do to build this kind of trust, or maybe some small set of activities. But another important thing in collaboration is to give people an understanding of what the end goal is. People generally work when they understand what they have it. I mean, of course, we need to give them an understanding of what the company and the organization is going to get out of it, but they also need to understand what they get out of it. Everybody is in a constant state of learning. The moment you get into that, you start, collaboration happens. And then when you have an open environment, that part of the culture is super important, to have an open environment where feedback is accepted. And you may have to intervene sometimes. It's good to have a coach sometimes, it's good to have a mentor sometimes, in these kind of situations where you can sense that there could be some trouble. So some kind of a review mechanism would be helpful. So I would say it's a variety of factors depending on whom you are dealing with, what kind of situation it is, what is the urgency of it, is it a high pressure environment or a low pressure environment, is where you can inject all these kind of support systems.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rovin. And one more question is a bit more shifting towards HR, and that is, how can HR help in supporting your team and keeping the team together to stay motivated to work more? Like, is there what is that? What is HR's role here? How can HR help building better teams?
Yeah. So I see HR as an equal partner. That's what I tell my HR business partner who supports me. You are an equal partner, and I ensure that he attends all my staff meetings, so that he has got a complete perspective of what we do, not only in terms of people but also in terms of business and the difficulties that we get through. That is very, very important for the person to empathize and understand what the team goes through. The second part of it is, we ensure that the HR partner connects with people. So what I tell them is, see, we are all business guys, which means we have a focus in one direction. We want you to come and give us another perspective. The perspective that you give us is typically where our blind spots are, right? The third part of it, what I tell them is, like, culture is super important for us. And maintaining and building a culture, HR plays a very, very important role. Now, I'm just not referring to policies or things which are more measurable like that, but I'm referring to basically activities like the morale of the team, like what the team stands for, the values of the team, the values of the individual, coaching people where needed. So for me, HR is highly important. I rather than calling it human resources, I'd rather call it people enablers. HR is an important people enabler function for me that enables that enables us as an organization to deliver more.
Yeah, wonderful, Rovin. I really enjoyed this talk, and since we have only a few minutes until the next session, I believe that this would be the end. But I'm sure, and I really hope that we will have another chance to chat and to discover more about this beautiful topic and your teams. And I'm so excited that I was here today. As I mentioned, we heard so many incredible things about you, and we know how important you and your team is for the whole organization. And Peter is here, so
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you saved the day there, Melissa. Wonderful insights. And I love what you just said at the end there, Rovin, about taking that phrase human resources, maybe shifting it to the side and replacing it with people enablers, because that is a really clear two words, but it's really clearly help us understand maybe more of the roles that we're actually doing. So all I have to say now is thank you so much. By the way, Rovin, where are you right now? Are you in India right now?
Yes, I'm based in south of India, in
Okay.
Bangalore, which is the Silicon Valley of India.
Fantastic. Well, it's lovely to have you. As you can see, HR Week is truly not just a European event, but clearly global as well. So thank you for your expertise, naturally, and also thank you for your time. So thank you. Goodbye, Rovin, and Melissa as well.
Thank
Right. Wonderful. So there we have it. We will move on now to our next session, swiftly moving on. And so a little bit early on, we talked about employer branding naturally, but now we're going to see whether that connection between culture and employer branding, where the two kind of meet and how the two kind of complement each other to really go forward. I'm intrigued as much as you are to really how this discussion, this next panel discussion is going to unfold. And that's about to happen very shortly in just about 30 seconds.